The world had always told Naomi Okafor to keep moving forward. "Don't waste your chances," her father had said when she got her scholarship letter. "Think of us when you're abroad," her mother had whispered with pride shining in her eyes. But all of it had slipped through her fingers the night of the accident. The memory still replayed in her mind like a cruel, broken record. The screech of tires. The blinding headlights that tore through the dark. The sickening crunch of metal. And her body moving instinctively, too fast to think, too desperate to watch someone die in front of her. She had pulled him, saved him, and then everything had gone black. When she opened her eyes again, it wasn't gratitude she was met with. It was accusation. "You ruined my car. You ruined everything." Huang Lei, a wealthy importer whose face was known all over town, spat when he saw her. His arm was bandaged, his cheek bruised, but his eyes were filled with nothing but rage. "Do you know how much damage you've caused? Do you know how much this will cost me?" Naomi, still weak, had tried to explain. She had saved him. If she hadn't pulled him, he would have been crushed under the steel frame. But her words dissolved against his fury. "You will pay," he growled, his voice low and cold. "Or I'll make sure you regret the day you crossed my path." Her heart had shattered further when she turned to her family for help. Her father's voice had been steady but merciless. "You gave up your scholarship, Naomi. You threw away your chance to leave. We cannot carry your mistakes anymore." Her mother couldn't even look at her. Her siblings avoided her. Overnight, she had gone from hope to disgrace, from the girl who had been her family's pride to the burden no one wanted to carry. Now, alone, with debts she couldn't pay and nowhere to run, Naomi found herself staring at the neon lights of a bar. Her stomach twisted with dread, but there was no choice. Rent was overdue, her phone buzzed with Huang Lei's threatening messages, and her family had locked their doors against her. She tied her scarf tighter, whispered a prayer, and stepped inside. The bar was suffocating, smoke, sweat, and the heavy thrum of music that made the walls vibrate. Men's eyes followed her as she moved toward the counter, her simple black dress feeling suddenly too thin under their stares. The manager, a wiry man with a permanent sneer, tossed her a tray. "You're late. Don't drop anything. And smile." Naomi bit the inside of her cheek and nodded. She needed this. She had no choice. But as the night wore on, the stares grew bolder, the hands reaching for her more reckless. One man cornered her near the back, his fingers digging into her arm. "How much for a smile like that?" he slurred, pulling her closer despite her protests. Fear clawed at her throat. She struggled, pushing against him, but his grip tightened. The stench of alcohol filled her lungs. And then, the roar of a motorcycle. The bar door swung open, and the man who entered carried danger in every line of his body. Leather jacket, ink trailing down his arm, eyes sharp enough to slice through the haze of smoke. A hush fell over the room as he stepped in, the kind of silence that followed someone used to commanding fear. His gaze found her instantly. "Let her go," he said, his voice low, deadly calm. The drunk man hesitated, but the biker only took one step forward. That was enough. The grip on her arm loosened, and Naomi stumbled back, heart racing. She didn't know his name, only the outline of a dragon tattoo curling over his wrist and the sound of his voice still vibrating in her chest. He looked at her once, as if making sure she could stand, before turning away. Without another word, he was gone, like smoke slipping through the cracks. Naomi pressed her trembling hands against her chest, whispering a thank you he would never hear. The next morning, she tried to erase the memory, convincing herself she could still go back to normal. She put on her uniform and returned to her daytime job at the local cafe. The familiar clatter of cups and hum of customers calmed her nerves. Maybe, just maybe, things could settle. Until he walked in. Huang Lei. The man who blamed her. The man who haunted her. He smirked when he saw her, loud enough for the cafe to turn its head as he announced, "Do you know who this girl is? She's a thief. She caused my accident, and now she's running from paying me back." The whispers spread like wildfire. The manager's eyes narrowed, and in minutes, Naomi was standing outside with her uniform stripped from her shoulders. Fired. Disgraced again. Tears blurred her vision as she stumbled through the streets. She had nothing left, not family, not money, not even her job. Her sobs drowned out the sound of the car until it was too late. The screech of brakes. The impact. Pain exploding through her body as she crumpled to the ground. And then, darkness. When she woke again, it was to the sterile white of a hospital room and the steady beep of a heart monitor. Her body ached, but her spirit was heavier than her wounds. And then she saw him. The man from the bar. The biker with the tattoos. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his gaze steady on her as though he had been waiting. "You again," she whispered, disbelief lacing her voice. He didn't smile. He just stepped closer, his shadow falling across her bed. "My name is Kai Chen," he said quietly. "And you're in trouble. Tell me everything." For the first time in weeks, Naomi felt the tightness in her chest ease, just a little. Maybe she wasn't completely alone anymore. And maybe, just maybe, this stranger was the beginning of a fight to take her life back. The steady beep of the heart monitor filled the silence, loud against the weight pressing on Naomi's chest. She blinked, trying to steady her vision, but it wasn't the harsh hospital lights that unsettled her. It was him. The man from the bar. The biker who had saved her once, standing at the edge of her bed like a shadow come to life. He hadn't moved since she noticed him, arms folded across his chest, tattoos crawling over his skin like whispers of a dangerous past. His dark eyes were fixed on her, unreadable, yet carrying the weight of someone who didn't waste time with games. Naomi swallowed hard. "Why are you here?" He pushed off the wall slowly, his boots heavy against the tile. "Because trouble doesn't seem to leave you alone," he said. His voice was low, steady, but there was steel hidden beneath it. "And if you keep pretending you can handle it, you're going to end up dead." Her breath hitched. A part of her wanted to argue, to tell him he had no right to walk into her life with words like daggers. But another part, the broken, exhausted part, knew he was right. She looked away, her fingers twisting in the hospital sheet. "You wouldn't understand." "Then make me," he said, stepping closer. His shadow fell across her bed again, and Naomi felt caged by his presence. "Start talking, Naomi." Her head snapped up, eyes wide. "How do you know my name?" His lips curved, not into a smile but into something colder. "You don't walk into a bar like that, desperate enough to take a job where men eat you alive, without someone noticing. I asked around." Naomi's chest tightened. He was a stranger, yet he knew her name. She should have felt threatened, but instead, a dangerous sense of relief trickled through her. Someone knew. Someone was watching. And before she could stop herself, the words spilled out. "He's destroying me," she whispered. "Huang Lei. I saved him from an accident, and instead of thanking me, he blamed me. Said I caused it. Said I had to pay." Her voice cracked as tears stung her eyes. "I lost everything. My family, my job, and now he won't stop." She squeezed her eyes shut, remembering the cafe, the cruel smirk on Huang Lei's lips as everyone turned on her. The shame burned fresh. "I don't know what to do anymore." Silence. Heavy. Unforgiving. When she opened her eyes again, Kai Chen was staring at her with a look that made her blood run cold. Not pity. Not comfort. Something sharper, like a man piecing together a puzzle he'd seen before. "You're saying," he murmured, almost to himself, "that Huang Lei, the same Huang Lei who owns half the import businesses in this city, is blackmailing you?" Naomi nodded weakly. "Yes." Kai's jaw tightened, and for the first time, Naomi noticed the faint scar slicing across his cheekbone, as if he'd already lived through 1,000 battles. His eyes darkened, unreadable. "You have no idea," he said finally, his voice low, "what kind of storm you've stepped into." Before she could ask what he meant, the door creaked open. Naomi's heart lurched. 2 men in dark suits stepped inside, their eyes sweeping over her with thinly veiled disdain. She knew that look, Huang Lei's men. Her pulse quickened, fear flooding her veins. Miss Okafor, one of them said smoothly, though his tone dripped with menace. Our boss sends his regards. He's very disappointed that you've chosen to hide here instead of making amends. Naomi's lips trembled. I didn't. The second man cut her off with a sneer. You have until the end of the week. Pay what you owe, or your little accident will look like mercy compared to what's coming. His gaze flicked to Kai, dismissive. And stay away from people who think they can protect you. They'll end up dragged down with you. Kai hadn't moved the entire time. He leaned casually against the bed rail, his expression unreadable, but Naomi felt the air in the room shift, thick, charged, dangerous. The men turned to leave, clearly confident no one would challenge them. But before the door closed, Kai finally spoke. Tell Huang Lei, he said, his voice calm, almost too calm, that if he wants to keep playing with fire, I'll be more than happy to burn his empire to the ground. The men froze. One of them turned back, his face paling slightly at the cold edge in Kai's tone. But neither dared respond. They slipped out without another word. The silence they left behind was deafening. Naomi's heart pounded so hard it hurt. She turned to Kai, her voice barely above a whisper. Who are you really? Kai's gaze met hers, steady and unflinching. Someone Huang Lei should have left buried, he said. And for the first time, Naomi realized, this wasn't just about her anymore. Whatever Kai's connection was to Huang Lei, it was darker, deeper, and far more dangerous than she could imagine. And she had just stepped right into the middle of it. The silence in the hospital room lingered long after Huang Lei's men left. Naomi could still hear their voices in her head, sharp and heavy with threat, like chains dragging across the floor. She clutched the thin blanket tighter, her knuckles white, her chest rising and falling too quickly. But Kai hadn't flinched. He still leaned against the bed rail, calm, collected, like a predator waiting for the perfect moment to strike. His words echoed in the room, low and menacing. I'll burn his empire to the ground. Naomi swallowed, her throat dry. You don't even know me, she whispered. Why would you say something like that? His gaze cut to her, steady and cold. Because Huang Lei is not just your problem, Naomi. He's mine too. Her breath hitched. What do you mean? Kai didn't answer immediately. He stepped back, dragging a chair closer to the bed, and sat down, his arms resting on his knees. For the first time, she saw the faint weariness beneath his eyes, the weight of something much heavier than chance. I used to work with him, Kai said finally, his voice low, almost reluctant. A long time ago. Back before I realized what he really was. Naomi's chest tightened. She wanted to ask, but the look in his eyes told her this wasn't a story he gave away freely. What he did to you, it doesn't surprise me, Kai continued. Huang Lei doesn't care who he destroys. All he sees are tools and obstacles. Right now, you're an obstacle. Naomi's hands trembled. But I didn't do anything. I saved him. That's exactly why, Kai interrupted, his tone sharp enough to slice through her words. Because you saw him at his weakest. And men like Huang Lei don't forgive weakness, especially not their own. His words struck like stones. Naomi pressed a hand against her mouth, trying to keep the sob from slipping out. She had thought maybe, just maybe, if she explained enough, if she begged enough, if she endured enough, he would stop. But Kai's voice carried no room for illusions. Huang Lei would never stop. The door suddenly cracked open again, and Naomi jolted. But this time, it wasn't Huang Lei's men. A nurse peeked in, her eyes narrowing at Kai. Visiting hours are over. You need to leave. Kai rose slowly, the chair scraping back. I'll be outside, he said to Naomi, his voice softer now, almost reassuring. Don't talk to anyone else until I come back. And then he was gone, his boots echoing against the linoleum floor. Naomi barely slept that night. Every creak of the hospital building made her flinch. Every shadow that passed beneath her door felt like a hand reaching for her. By morning, the exhaustion clung to her bones. She sat upright, staring at the window, when the door opened again. Kai. This time, he wasn't alone. He carried a paper bag, dropping it gently on the table beside her. Eat, he ordered. Naomi blinked. What? Hospital food tastes like cardboard. You'll need strength. He pushed the bag toward her, his tone leaving no room for refusal. Inside, the smell of steamed buns and warm broth filled the air, making her stomach twist with unexpected hunger. She looked up at him, hesitant. Why are you helping me? Kai's jaw tightened. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he leaned against the wall again, arms folded, eyes fixed on her like he was measuring the weight of her question. Finally, he said, because once, someone helped me when they didn't have to. And I don't like debts left unpaid. Naomi lowered her gaze, her heart caught between gratitude and unease. She didn't know what kind of life Kai had lived, but she knew it wasn't clean. He carried shadows like second skin. And yet, he was the only one standing beside her when the rest of the world had turned its back. As she lifted the bowl to her lips, Kai moved closer, lowering his voice. They'll come back. Huang Lei won't stop sending his men until you break. His eyes locked with hers, intense, unyielding. So you have two choices, Naomi. Keep running until they corner you, or stand and fight. Naomi's hand froze halfway to her mouth. Fight. Against him. He's powerful. He has money, connections, people who bleed like everyone else. Kai cut in, his tone flat, almost dangerous. Naomi shivered. There was no bravado in his voice. No arrogance. Just the certainty of a man who had fought before and survived. Why me? She whispered. Why risk yourself for me? Kai's gaze lingered on her for a long, heavy moment. Then he leaned closer, his shadow swallowing the sunlight creeping through the blinds. Because Huang Lei took something from me too, he said quietly. And maybe, helping you is the only way I'll get it back. Before Naomi could respond, the door slammed open. A nurse rushed in, breathless. Miss Okafor, your discharge papers. You've been cleared to leave today. Naomi's stomach dropped. Leave. To where? She had no home, no family to return to, no job waiting. Stepping out of the hospital felt less like freedom and more like being pushed into a storm without shelter. She looked at Kai, panic flickering in her chest. Don't worry, he said, his voice calm, steady. You won't be alone. Naomi didn't know whether to feel relieved, or afraid of just how much deeper she was about to be pulled into Kai Zhang's world. But one thing was certain. Whatever was waiting for her outside those hospital doors, it would change everything. The steady beep of the hospital machines had stopped, replaced by the hum of the city outside. Naomi gripped her discharge papers in trembling hands as she followed Kai through the corridors, each step dragging her closer to a life she wasn't ready to face. She kept her eyes on his back, the leather jacket, the ink curling down his arm, the easy but sharp way he moved. Every nurse and orderly seemed to step out of his path without thinking. Naomi realized with a chill that this wasn't just because of his looks. It was the weight he carried, the kind of presence that said he was used to walking through fire and daring others to follow. At the hospital doors, Naomi hesitated. Beyond them, the world felt like a battlefield. Kai glanced back at her, his dark eyes narrowing. You scared? Yes, she admitted softly. Good. He pushed the doors open, the bright sunlight spilling over them both. Stay scared. It'll keep you alive. The motorcycle was waiting at the curb, sleek and black, its chrome edges gleaming like a blade. Naomi froze. I can't ride that, she stammered, clutching her papers tighter. Kai's lips twitched, though not into a smile. You don't have a choice. Before she could protest further, he handed her a helmet. Trust me, Naomi. If Huang Lei's men want to find you, they'll start with the easy places, buses, cabs, trains. They won't look for you here. Her hand shook as she slid the helmet on, but when she climbed onto the bike behind him, something strange happened. The fear didn't vanish, but it dulled, replaced by the heat of his back, the steady rumble of the engine, and the way he glanced once over his shoulder as if making sure she was still there. The city blurred as they sped through it, neon signs and crowded markets whipping past. Naomi clung to Kai tighter than she meant to, her heartbeat thrumming in sync with the motorcycle's roar. For a moment, she almost felt free. Until the black SUV appeared in the mirror. Kai noticed instantly. His jaw tightened, his grip shifting on the handlebars. "Hold on," he said, voice clipped. "What?" Naomi barely got the word out before the motorcycle surged forward, the engine screaming as Kai cut into a narrow side street. The SUV followed. Naomi's stomach lurched as they weaved through alleys, Kai leaning into turns with lethal precision. She could hear the squeal of tires behind them, the shouts of men leaning out of the SUV's windows. A gun glinted in the sun. Bang! The shot cracked through the air. Naomi screamed, ducking instinctively as sparks flew from a nearby wall. Kai didn't flinch. He twisted the bike sharply, skidding them into another street. The SUV tried to follow, but Kai had already calculated the turn. With a sudden swerve, he cut into a dead-end alley, then at the last second, launched the bike up a side ramp and over a row of crates. They landed hard, Naomi's cries swallowed by the engine's roar. The SUV slammed to a halt behind them, its path blocked. Naomi's arms tightened around Kai, her breath shallow. They were trying to kill us." "They will," Kai said darkly, "if you don't learn to stop panicking." His tone was sharp, but when he slowed a block later and finally stopped in the shadows of an abandoned warehouse, he turned his head just enough to catch her eyes. "You okay?" he asked, softer this time. Naomi tore the helmet off, her hair clinging to her damp forehead. Her whole body shook, but she forced herself to nod. "I think so." Kai studied her for a moment, then gave a single approving nod. "Good. You didn't let go." Naomi almost laughed, a broken, shaky laugh. "Was I supposed to?" He didn't answer, but the faintest flicker of something crossed his face. Respect, maybe. Or something harder to name. Inside the warehouse, the air smelled of rust and dust. Kai led her through a maze of crates and broken machinery until they reached a small corner hidden from view. A mattress lay on the floor, worn but clean, with a folded blanket on top. "It's not much," Kai said flatly. "But it's safe. No one will think to look for you here." Naomi stared, stunned. This is yours." His expression hardened. "Don't ask questions you don't want answers to." She lowered her gaze, biting her lip. Still, gratitude swelled in her chest. "Thank you." Kai shrugged, turning away as if uncomfortable with the word. "Don't thank me yet. You're in deeper than you realize." Naomi frowned. "What do you mean?" He turned back, eyes cold as steel. "Huang Lei doesn't just want money, Naomi. He wants control. Once you step into his debt, you belong to him. And people who belong to him." His voice trailed off, but the darkness in his eyes said enough. Naomi shivered. "Then what do I do?" Kai's gaze locked onto hers, steady, unrelenting. "You fight. But not alone. From now on, you stay where I tell you, go where I take you, and listen when I say move." Her heart pounded. The idea of trusting him terrified her almost as much as Huang Lei did. But looking at him now, the scar on his cheek, the shadows in his eyes, the way he had faced down men with guns without blinking, she realized she had no choice. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll listen." For the first time, Kai's expression softened, just slightly. He nodded once, decisive. But before Naomi could feel any relief, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and the look that crossed his face made Naomi's blood run cold. "What is it?" she asked, voice trembling. Kai's jaw clenched. "Huang Lei's already moving faster than I thought." He held the phone up so she could see. On the screen was a photo. Naomi's younger brother, bound, terrified, a bruise swelling across his cheek. Beneath it, a single message. You have 1 week. Or your family pays the price. Naomi's scream echoed through the hollow warehouse, her legs giving way beneath her. Kai caught her before she hit the ground, his grip iron strong. Her tears soaked his jacket as the truth crashed down on her. This wasn't just about her anymore. Her family was already in the fire. Naomi couldn't breathe. The photo still burned in her mind, her brother, tied to a chair, terror in his eyes, a bruise cutting across his cheek. Her hands shook violently as she clutched Kai's jacket, her knees weak under the weight of fear. He has him, she whispered hoarsely. Huang Lei has my brother, he's going to kill him. Naomi. Kai's voice cut through her panic, steady and sharp. He gripped her shoulders, forcing her eyes to meet his. His stare was unyielding, grounding her even as her heart clawed against her ribs. Listen to me, he said, low and firm. Your brother is alive. That photo was a message, not an execution. Huang Lei wants to break you, not bury you, yet. That means we still have time. Naomi's tears blurred her vision. Time for what? I can't fight him, Kai. I can't, he's too powerful, too. Stop. His tone was like a whip, harsh but necessary. If you let fear control you, he's already won. Naomi bit her lip hard, tasting blood. Her body trembled, but his words anchored her enough to breathe again. She hated him for being right, hated herself for being so powerless, but most of all, she hated Huang Lei for dragging her family into this nightmare. Kai finally released her, stepping back, running a hand over his face. For the first time, Naomi caught a flicker of exhaustion in his eyes. But when he spoke again, his voice was iron. I know where Huang Lei keeps his leverage. Properties, warehouses, hidden places only his men touch. If your brother's still alive, he's in one of them. Naomi's head snapped up. You can find him? Kai didn't answer immediately. He paced the warehouse, his boots echoing against the cracked floor. Maybe. But it won't be simple. And Huang Lei won't just hand him over. Not without a price. Naomi's chest constricted. Then I'll pay it. Whatever he wants, I'll. No, the word was sharp, final. She flinched. But. You think giving him what he wants will save your brother? It won't. Kai's eyes were like fire now, dark and blazing with a rage Naomi didn't understand. You'll hand him power over you, and he'll take your brother anyway. That's how Huang Lei works. He doesn't make deals. He makes corpses. The silence that followed was suffocating. Naomi hugged herself, her nails digging into her arms. The hopelessness gnawed at her bones. Then what do we do? She whispered. Kai's jaw tightened. We play his game. But on our terms. Naomi looked at him, stunned. What does that even mean? Kai leaned against a crate, his shadow stretching tall in the dim light. For a moment, he said nothing, as though weighing how much to reveal. Finally, his voice dropped to a low, dangerous calm. Years ago, I ran with men like him. Smuggling, debt collecting, enforcing. Huang Lei wasn't always the boss, he clawed his way up, and he used people like me to do it. I walked away before he could use me up too. Naomi's stomach twisted. The tattoos. The scar. The way he moved like someone who'd lived 100 fights. She had guessed he wasn't clean, but hearing it confirmed sent a chill through her. Why tell me this? She asked softly. Because you need to understand what we're up against, Kai said. Huang Lei's empire isn't just money, it's fear. He doesn't forgive betrayal, and he doesn't leave enemies breathing. If I go after him, I'm not just saving your brother. I'm declaring war. Naomi's lips parted, but no words came. War. The word rattled through her like an earthquake. Finally, she whispered, and you'd risk that, for me? Kai's gaze flickered, softer for just a breath before it hardened again. For your brother, he corrected. And because Huang Lei should have stayed in the ground a long time ago. A heavy silence fell. Naomi's heart pounded, torn between terror and a strange, fragile thread of hope. "Tell me what to do," she said finally. Kai studied her, his expression unreadable. Then he nodded once, decisive. "First, we gather information. I need to know which warehouse he's keeping your brother in. That means you'll have to go somewhere Huang Lei thinks you'd never dare show your face." Naomi frowned. "Where?" His eyes locked with hers, hard as steel. "One of his nightclubs." Her stomach dropped. "A nightclub? Kai, that's suicide. His men will recognize me the second I walk in." "That's why you won't walk in as Naomi," Kai replied coldly. "You'll walk in as someone else. And you'll keep your head down while I do the digging." Naomi's pulse raced, fear crawling through her veins. The thought of stepping anywhere near Huang Lei's world made her want to collapse. But the image of her brother, bound, terrified, burned behind her eyes. If she stayed silent, he'd die. Naomi clenched her fists, summoning every shred of courage left in her broken body. "Fine," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. "Tell me what to wear." Kai's lips curved, not a smile, but something close. A shadow of approval. "Good," he said. "Because once we walk into that club, there's no turning back." The words echoed in Naomi's mind like the toll of a bell. Once we walk into that club, there's no turning back. The next night, she found herself standing in front of a mirror in Kai's warehouse hideout, hardly recognizing the woman staring back at her. The simple dresses she once wore were gone, replaced by a sleek, sequined black gown Kai had somehow gotten his hands on. Her scarf, her shield of modesty, was gone too. Her lips, painted in a shade of deep crimson, trembled as she pressed them together. "Breathe," Kai's voice came from behind her, firm but not unkind. "Fear shows in the eyes first. If you walk in there looking scared, they'll eat you alive." Naomi turned to him, her pulse quickening. Kai was dressed differently too, no biker jacket, no rugged leather. Instead, he wore a crisp black shirt, sleeves rolled just enough to reveal the dragon tattoo on his wrist. Dangerous, but polished. He belonged to the kind of world they were walking into, and for the first time, Naomi realized just how far from hers it had always been. "I don't think I can do this," she whispered. Kai's gaze locked onto hers, steady, grounding. "You can. Because your brother doesn't have time for you to doubt." Those words pierced through her fear. She nodded once, drawing strength she didn't think she had, and followed him out into the night. The nightclub was a beast of light and noise, pulsing with neon and music that shook the ground. Bouncers stood at the entrance, their suits too tight, their eyes sharp. Naomi clung to Kai's arm, her heart hammering, but he walked with the ease of someone returning to familiar ground. Inside, smoke and perfume clashed in the air, bodies swayed to the rhythm, and laughter rang sharp like broken glass. Naomi kept her head down, letting her hair curtain her face, while Kai scanned the room. "There," he murmured, nodding toward a set of stairs leading to a private balcony. "That's where Huang Lei does business. We just need to know where he's keeping your brother." Naomi's throat tightened. "And if he sees me?" "He won't," Kai said. "Because I won't let him." But fate had a crueler plan. Huang Lei's voice carried through the music before Naomi even saw him. Smooth, arrogant, laced with venom. "Kai Zhang. I wondered when you'd crawl out of whatever hole you'd been hiding in." Naomi froze. Her stomach dropped as she dared to glance up, and there he was. Huang Lei, dressed in a tailored suit, a glass of whiskey in hand, smirk sharp enough to cut. And his eyes, those dark, merciless eyes, slid right past Kai and landed on her. For a heartbeat, the world stopped. "Naomi," he drawled, savoring her name. "I should have known you'd come crawling back." Kai shifted, his body a shield in front of her. "We're not here for games, Huang Lei. Tell me where you're keeping her brother." The room seemed to still, the music fading beneath the weight of the confrontation. Huang Lei set his glass down with a soft clink, his smirk widening. You think you can walk into my house and make demands? You of all people, Kai. His eyes glittered with cruel amusement. I should kill you both where you stand. Naomi's breath hitched, but Kai didn't flinch. He leaned closer, his voice low and lethal. Try it. For a long moment, silence reigned, a taut wire threatening to snap. Then Huang Lei laughed, a cold, hollow sound. You haven't changed, he said, shaking his head. Still reckless. Still dangerous. Fine. You want the girl's brother. He gestured, and two of his men dragged someone into the light. Naomi gasped. Her brother. Bruised, bound, but alive. Her knees buckled, and she would have fallen if not for Kai's steady hand at her back. Here's the deal, Huang Lei said smoothly. Naomi works for me. Her debt isn't gone until I say so. She gives me loyalty, or her brother's next breath is his last. Naomi's heart tore in two. Work for him. Chain herself to the very men who had destroyed her life? She looked at her brother, then at Kai. Kai's jaw tightened, his hand brushing against hers, silent, steadying. Don't answer, he murmured. But Naomi lifted her chin, fire burning through her fear. For too long, she had cowered. For too long, she had let Huang Lei take everything. No, she said, her voice trembling but loud enough to carry. I won't belong to you. Not anymore. Huang Lei's smile vanished. Fury twisted his features, and he snapped his fingers. His men surged forward. And Kai moved like lightning. The nightclub erupted in chaos. Fists, shouts, the crash of glass. Kai fought with ruthless precision, every strike calculated, every move meant to end the threat before it spread. Naomi scrambled to her brother, cutting his bonds with trembling hands, pulling him close as the storm raged around them. Huang Lei shouted orders, but his men fell one by one under Kai's fury. Finally, Kai caught Huang Lei by the collar, slamming him against the balcony rail. You should have stayed buried, Kai hissed. For the first time, Huang Lei's eyes flickered with fear. But before Kai could finish it, Naomi's voice cut through the haze. Stop, she cried, clutching her brother. Don't kill him. Please. Kai froze, his grip iron tight, his chest heaving. Slowly, he released Huang Lei, shoving him back. This isn't over, Huang Lei spat, stumbling to his feet, but the tremor in his voice betrayed him. Kai didn't answer. He just took Naomi's hand, guiding her and her brother through the wreckage and out into the night. Hours later, safe in the warehouse, Naomi held her brother close, tears streaming freely. Relief and exhaustion warred inside her, but for the first time in weeks, hope glimmered faintly through the cracks. Kai stood at a distance, his shadow long against the wall. When Naomi finally looked at him, her voice was raw. Why did you help me? You could have walked away. His gaze met hers, steady, unreadable. Because I know what it's like to lose everything. And I won't let Huang Lei take anything more from you. Naomi swallowed hard, gratitude and something softer rising in her chest. She didn't know what their future held, whether Huang Lei would return, whether she and Kai could ever truly be free. But as dawn broke through the warehouse windows, painting the world in fragile gold, Naomi realized something she hadn't felt in a long time. She wasn't alone anymore. And that, for now, was enough. 6 months later. The church bells rang softly in the late afternoon sun, their chimes carrying joy into the warm air. Naomi Okafor stood at the altar, her hand trembling inside Kai's steady grip. 6 months ago, her life had felt like shattered glass, broken dreams, unanswered prayers, and wounds too deep to name. Yet here she was, standing in a white gown, her heart brimming with hope. Kai gazed at her with quiet devotion, his dark eyes promising what words could not. I'm here. Always. He had seen her brokenness, and instead of turning away, he had chosen to love her through it. As the priest's voice echoed, pronouncing them husband and wife, Naomi felt tears slip down her cheeks, not of sorrow, but of joy so fierce it shook her. When Kai leaned down to kiss her, The world seemed to pause, as if even time wanted to honor their beginning. The reception that followed was filled with laughter, dancing, and the scent of roses. Friends and family toasted to their future, and Naomi's heart swelled with gratitude. For once, she wasn't running from her past. She was walking into a future she could finally embrace, with Kai by her side. A week later, they found themselves far away from the noise of the city, standing hand in hand on a sandy beach. The ocean stretched endlessly before them, its waves curling gently at their feet. Naomi slipped off her sandals, feeling the cool water lap against her skin, and let out a carefree laugh Kai hadn't heard before. "This feels like freedom," she whispered. Kai smiled, pulling her close. "It is. Our freedom. Our beginning." They spent their days exploring hidden coves, watching sunsets paint the sky in colors that seemed too beautiful to be real, and falling asleep to the sound of waves crashing softly outside their villa. Naomi carried no weight on her shoulders anymore. With every sunrise, she felt reborn. On their last night, as lanterns flickered around them and the ocean breeze carried the scent of salt and jasmine, Naomi leaned into Kai's chest. "6 months ago, I didn't think I'd make it here," she confessed softly. "And now?" he asked. "Now I know I was meant to," she replied. "With you." Kai kissed her hair, his embrace steady and strong. Beneath the stars, they promised, not just vows spoken in church, but vows written in every heartbeat, that whatever storms came, they would face them together. The waves whispered along the shore, carrying their laughter into the night. And for Naomi, this was no longer the end of her story, this was the beginning.